You know, people talk about fairy tales as though they're meant to be read in children's books. But what nobody tells you is that adults build their own fairy tales too. Mine started when I married her. Before I continue the story, like, subscribe and tell us where you're listening from. I won't say her name, she doesn't deserve it. But she was young, not just in years, but in the way she carried herself. She had this face that never seemed to belong to the struggles of life. Always polished. Always smiling. Like she'd been sculpted for admiration. And God help me, I adored her. I didn't just marry a woman. I married a dream. See, while most people spend their lives hoarding money, protecting every coin, I had built something bigger. Quiet empires. Hidden companies. Properties scattered in places you'd never visit unless you had a passport filled with secrets. I kept them all under my name, in files that couldn't be traced, in safe accounts that slept like dormant volcanoes. And I wanted to hand it all to her. Every single piece. You might ask, why? Why would a man who worked his entire life, bleeding through long nights and silent sacrifices, just give it away? The answer is simpler than you think. Because love blinds you. It makes you believe that generosity isn't a risk, it's a promise. And my promise to her was that one day, she'd wake up not just as my wife, but as a woman the world couldn't ignore. I had the paperwork ready. The lawyers on standby. The trust funds waiting. I told myself, the day she learns to handle attention, the day she proves she can stand in the spotlight without breaking, I'll do it. I'll move everything into her name. She'll be untouchable. Funny, isn't it? How close we walk to our own destruction and smile while doing it. I remember the night I first thought about making her global. She was asleep beside me, her breathing steady, her hair scattered across the pillow like something drawn for a painting. And I whispered, you'll never know struggle again. You'll never know loneliness. You'll never know the hunger I knew as a boy. I meant it. Every word. But here's the thing about fairy tales, they always have a shadow. And mine was waiting for me in silence. You know that gut feeling, the one you bury because love tells you not to listen? Yeah. I had it. She had habits that should have raised alarms. Too many late-night calls. Smiles at messages she'd never let me see. Her phone always face down, always locked, as though the world on that screen was a fortress I had no key to. But I convinced myself it was nothing. I told myself I was paranoid, that maybe wealth had made me cautious, suspicious of everything. Love doesn't mix well with suspicion, so I silenced my instincts. Instead, I started planning even bigger. She loved attention. She loved cameras, social media, and flashing lights. I thought, if she craves the world's gaze, let me give it to her. I was ready to pour money into building her image, a public figure who'd step out in designer gowns, with every brand name stitched into her shadow. I pictured her face on magazine covers, her name on the lips of strangers. And me? I'd be the man smiling quietly in the background, the kingmaker nobody noticed. But even then, there was a whisper. Something inside me that said, you're building a throne for someone who doesn't want to sit beside you. She wants to sit above you. I ignored it. Looking back, that was the first mistake. Here's a little truth for you, betrayal doesn't fall from the sky. It grows. Slowly. Like a vine around your throat. You don't notice until you can't breathe anymore. At that point, I still believed in her. Still believed she'd be loyal if I gave her the world. I thought sacrifice bought devotion. I thought wealth erased temptation. I was wrong. Dead wrong. And the worst part? The moment I found out, it wasn't even the beginning of the betrayal. It was just the surface. The tip of a blade that had already been buried deep into my back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That night, sitting alone in my study, flipping through documents with her name already penciled in on the margins, I smiled like a fool. I imagined her reaction the day I told her. How her eyes would widen, how she'd hug me, how she'd say I was the greatest man alive. Instead, the only thing she gave me in the end, was poison. Poison, lies, and the kind of truth you don't recover from. But we'll get there. For now, remember this, the biggest trap a man can fall into isn't love. It's the belief that love can't turn against you. That belief almost cost me everything, my fortune, my legacy, my life. And if you think this story ends with heartbreak, you're wrong. Heartbreak was just the welcome mat. The real story begins with what I did after the truth revealed itself. Stick with me. You'll see how fast a fairy tale can rot, and how dangerous a man becomes when the dream he built gets burned to ash. There are moments in life you never forget, not because you want to remember them, but because they burn themselves into your mind like a scar. For me, it was that Tuesday. The day started like any other. I was tired but satisfied, you know that kind of tired you get after a long day at work, where all you want is to step into your home, into peace, into the arms of the person you trust most. That's what I thought was waiting for me. But the universe, it likes to play tricks. When I reached my house, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Usually, she'd meet me at the door. A smile, a hug, maybe a glass of wine waiting on the counter. But that day, nothing. Just silence. The second thing I noticed, was the front door. It was slightly open. Just a crack. Not wide enough to scream danger, but enough to whisper it. And something in me, call it instinct, call it paranoia, told me to slow down. My steps grew quieter. My breathing sharper. Every nerve in me screamed, something's wrong. I pushed the door. It creaked, loud enough to feel like a warning bell. Inside, the lights were dim. The air smelled different, heavy, like perfume mixed with sweat. And then I heard it. Laughter. Not just any laughter, hers. But softer, playful, the kind of laugh you share when you think nobody's listening. And underneath it, a man's voice. Deep, careless. My heart didn't just sink, it froze. I walked down the hall like a ghost, each step slower than the last. My hand hovered over the bedroom door. It was cracked open, the tiniest gap, but enough for me to see shadows moving inside. I pushed it. And there it was. My bed. Our bed. The place where I had dreamed, planned, loved. And on it, her. Sheets tangled around her, hair messy, skin flushed. And beside her, him. A boy, younger than me, half-dressed, smirking like the devil himself had blessed him. For a moment, time stopped. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. My whole body went cold, like I'd stepped into a freezer. And then, something snapped inside me. She saw me. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened, and what came out was the oldest, most pathetic line in the book. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. I almost laughed. Almost. Because let me tell you something, betrayal looks exactly like what it looks like. It doesn't hide. It doesn't disguise itself. It shows you the truth raw, unfiltered, and it dares you to look away. She tried to scramble out of the sheets, to cover herself, to stand, but I raised my hand, not to hit her, but to silence her. To remind her that I didn't want excuses, I didn't want lies. And him? He looked like a child caught stealing candy, fumbling for his clothes, eyes darting between me and the window as if wondering which escape route would save him. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I didn't even step forward. Do you know why? Because rage, true rage, doesn't need volume. It needs silence. So I turned. Walked out of the room. Closed the door behind me. I slept on the couch that night. But don't mistake my silence for weakness. No. Silence is strategy. When you explode in the moment, you lose control. When you wait, when you watch, you own the game. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I thought about everything I had planned for her. The companies, the properties, the wealth, the will. All of it had been for her. And in return, she gave me this. But let me tell you something, that wasn't even the worst of it. What I saw on the bed that night was betrayal of the body. But betrayal of the body, you can live with. Betrayal of the heart, betrayal of loyalty, that's deeper. And I hadn't seen the full depth yet. The true betrayal was still waiting. See, I thought catching her with another man was the storm. But it was only the lightning before the thunder. The real storm came the next morning. When she walked into the kitchen, humming like nothing had happened. When she cracked eggs into a pan, smiled at me with the same lips that had kissed him hours before. When she set a plate in front of me, acting like the perfect wife. That's when I realized, something darker was happening. Because hidden cameras don't lie. And when I checked them, I didn't just find proof of her affair. I found proof that she wanted me gone. Dead. And that, my friends, is when the game changed. The camera zooms in. My eyes narrow. The screen fades to black with a single line across it. Love can cut you once. Betrayal will cut you twice. The second cut is meant to kill. If you've been following along, you know by now, betrayal has layers. And when you peel one back, you almost never like what you find underneath. That morning, after what I had seen the night before, I couldn't sleep. I lay on that couch with my mind running like a machine that wouldn't shut off. Every sound in the house felt louder. Every second stretched. The images of her tangled up with that man replayed over and over in my head like a broken tape. When dawn finally came, I heard her moving in the kitchen. Pots clinking. Oil sizzling. A hum in her throat, soft, sweet, almost cheerful. It was the same hum she used to sing on mornings when I thought I was the luckiest man alive. Now, it sounded like a weapon. I didn't say a word. I pretended to be asleep, my breathing slow and even, while she worked. Then I heard her footsteps coming closer, steady, deliberate. She was carrying the tray toward me. Breakfast. Eggs, toast, maybe juice on the side. I opened my eyes, smiled faintly, played the role of the half-awake husband. She placed the plate down with such care, like she was offering me love. And maybe once upon a time it would have fooled me. But not anymore. Because I had something she didn't know about. Hidden cameras. Little black eyes tucked into corners, behind books, inside vents. Cameras that didn't blink. Cameras that didn't lie. So while she stood there, asking if I wanted more sugar in my tea, I excused myself. Said I needed to freshen up before eating. She smiled and nodded. She thought she had me wrapped around her little finger, even now. I went straight to my study. Shut the door. Pulled out the tablet that connected to all the feeds. My fingers shook as I navigated through the footage, but my mind was ice. And then I saw it. The kitchen feed. The footage rolled back a few minutes. There she was, standing at the counter, humming to herself. She cracked the eggs into the pan, sprinkled salt, a little pepper. Normal. Ordinary. But then, her hand reached for something else. Not the spice jar I bought. Not the little glass bottles we always kept near the stove. This was different, a small container, tucked away, something she'd pulled from the far end of the cabinet. She opened it slowly, carefully. Tilted it. A pale powder slid out, dissolving into the sizzling eggs. Her movements were deliberate. Not rushed, not panicked. She had done this before. And the look on her face. God. I'll never forget it. It wasn't nervous. It wasn't guilty. It was calm. Composed. Like she was brushing her teeth or pouring a glass of water. As if trying to kill me was just another part of her morning routine. I sat there, watching, my throat tightening, my chest heavy. This wasn't just betrayal of love. This wasn't just infidelity. This was murder. Premeditated. Cold. My wife, the woman I gave everything to, the woman I was ready to hand my empire to, had poisoned my breakfast with the same hands I once kissed. I stared at the screen, and for a second, I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel pain. I felt disbelief. Like maybe this was some nightmare I'd wake from. But the footage didn't lie. She wanted me dead. Dead so she could have it all. The bed was betrayal. The poison? That was execution. And you know what broke me most? She did it with a smile. She set that plate down in front of me with the same gentle grin she wore on our wedding day. But cameras don't care about smiles. They catch the truth. My hands clenched so tight on the tablet I thought it would crack. For a moment, I considered confronting her right there. Storming into the kitchen, shoving the footage in her face, demanding to know how long she had planned this. But then something inside me whispered, wait. If she could plot like this, then I had to be smarter. So I placed the tablet down. Picked up my phone. And dialed. The number wasn't for a friend, or a lawyer, or even family. It was for the police. When the officer's voice came on the line, I said 4 words I never thought I'd have to say. My wife poisoned me. They told me to stay calm. Told me not to eat anything. Told me help was on the way. I hung up and sat there in silence. Every tick of the clock sounded louder. Every second she spent in the kitchen, oblivious, felt like the edge of a knife pressing against my throat. And when the sirens finally echoed faintly in the distance, I didn't feel relief. I felt rage. Because in that moment, I knew something for certain: she thought she could outplay me. She thought she could lie in my bed, poison my food, and take my empire. But what she didn't know, was that I was about to destroy hers. The camera lingers on my face. I lean forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. Love makes you blind. But betrayal? Betrayal makes you see everything. You ever see handcuffs on someone you once kissed goodnight? It's a strange sight. Surreal. Almost like watching a stranger play a role in a movie. Only this wasn't a movie. It was my life. When the police arrived, it was quiet. No sirens blaring, no chaos. Just 2 officers at the door, knocking politely like they were there to borrow sugar. She opened it, smiling like the perfect wife, and for a second, I almost believed she could pull it off. Almost. They asked for me. I stepped forward, calm, collected. And then I handed them the tablet. I showed them the footage. No emotion. No commentary. Just the raw truth, her hands sprinkling poison into the pan, her face calm as though she were seasoning food with love instead of death. The room shifted. Her smile cracked. What is this?" she stammered. She tried to laugh, as if it were some cruel prank. "He's joking, officer. He likes his gadgets, you know how men are." But the officers didn't laugh. Their faces turned to stone. They asked her to step aside. Asked her a few questions. Her answers were all over the place. Too fast. Too desperate. I didn't even need to speak. The more she talked, the deeper she dug her grave. And then came the moment. One of the officers gently pulled her hands behind her back. The metallic click of the cuffs echoed in the room like a bell tolling for the dead. Her eyes went wide, locking on mine. And for the first time, I saw it: fear. Not guilt, not sorrow. Pure, unfiltered fear. "Tell them," she screamed at me. "Tell them this isn't true. You love me. You wouldn't do this to me." Her voice cracked, desperate, trembling. But me? I stood there like stone. Watching. Listening. My silence said everything. Because the truth was simple: I had loved her. Enough to hand her the world. But love doesn't survive betrayal. Not this kind. The officers guided her out. She fought, screaming, cursing, her voice bouncing off the walls. She begged, then threatened, then cried. All in the span of 2 minutes. Like a drowning person thrashing for air. And me? I didn't move. I didn't chase. I didn't even answer. I just watched as they took her away. Now, let me tell you something. Most people think revenge is loud. Shouting. Throwing. Breaking. No. Real revenge is paperwork. It's quiet. Precise. Surgical. And that's exactly how I dismantled her life. The first thing I did was revoke every access she had. The cards, the accounts, the passwords she thought I never noticed her snooping for. Gone. Frozen. Locked tighter than a vault. Then came the property. The house she loved to parade around in. Stripped from her reach. The cars she flaunted on her Instagram. Towed, repossessed, gone. The jewelry. Catalogued and sealed. I had lawyers who owed me favors, bankers who owed me loyalty. I made calls. Each one like pulling a brick from beneath her feet. She thought she was marrying into a kingdom. What she didn't know was that I built the walls so high, so complicated, that without me, she couldn't navigate a single door. And I slammed every door shut. Do you know what it feels like to watch someone who once lived like royalty suddenly live like nothing? To see the shine stripped off their skin, the arrogance dissolve from their voice. It's not joy, not exactly. It's justice. Because she didn't just betray me. She tried to erase me. And for that, she had to learn what erasure felt like. But here's the part that might shock you, I didn't raise a hand against her. Not once. I didn't need to. Why would I, when the law itself was my weapon? When the evidence I had, cold, undeniable, captured on camera, was sharper than any knife? Every court date was another nail in the coffin of the life she thought she'd built with me. Every headline that mentioned her name was another chain dragging her reputation to the bottom. I could have ended her in silence. But no. I wanted the world to see. I wanted her to taste the humiliation she once thought she'd escape by marrying into wealth. And she tasted it. Oh, how she tasted it. Her family stopped answering her calls. Her friends distanced themselves. The man I caught in bed with her. He vanished, like a rat deserting a sinking ship. She was alone. Stripped. Powerless. And me? I sat in my study, sipping whiskey, watching it all unfold like a carefully written play. But don't think for a second that was the end. Because revenge isn't just about taking something away. It's about replacing it. Redirecting it. Making sure the future she thought belonged to her, belongs to someone else. That's when I thought about the will. The document I had been preparing for months. The one with her name penciled in on every line. The one that would have made her untouchable, even after I was gone. I opened it. Looked at her name. And I smiled. Because now, it was time to erase it. The camera zooms in on my face, a flicker of satisfaction in my eyes. The screen fades to black with one line. She tried to poison me for my fortune. Instead, I poisoned her future. When people talk about revenge, they picture fire. They picture rage, destruction, blood. But the truth? Real revenge isn't fire. It's paper. It's ink. It's a signature that changes everything. For me, that signature was on my will. Let me explain. For months, maybe years, I had been preparing. I had lawyers drafting documents, accountants balancing numbers, bankers maintaining accounts spread across borders most people never cross. Properties tucked under shell companies. Luxury cars and houses under trusts so complicated, even experts would take months to untangle them. All of it had been meant for her. My young, beautiful wife. The woman I thought I'd make untouchable. The woman who tried to kill me for it. I remember opening that folder for the first time after her arrest. Her name was everywhere. Neat, bold, permanent. My fortune, my legacy, my empire, all ready to fall into her lap. It would have made her more powerful than she ever dreamed. But I had cameras. I had proof. I had time. And now, I had a decision to make. Do I erase her name and leave everything in my own, or do I take it further? That's when my mind drifted. Back to the neighborhood I grew up in. A place of cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights. Where families stretched every dollar, where kids shared one textbook between three. There was one family in particular. They didn't know me well, but I knew them. Watched them grow. The father working 2 jobs, his back bent but his pride unbroken. The mother walking the kids to school even when she had nothing in her stomach but coffee. And the children, sharp, bright, hungry for something more, though the world gave them so little. I thought of them often. Because in them, I saw something my wife never had, gratitude. And that's when I knew. My fortune wouldn't rot in her hands. It wouldn't sit there as a monument to betrayal. No. It would become a weapon. A weapon of justice. A gift, yes, but also a punishment. Because nothing would hurt her more than knowing she lost everything to people she'd never even look at twice. So I made the call. I sat with my lawyer, slid the folder across the desk, and said 4 words that changed everything. Erase her. Replace them. He looked at me, confused. Replace them with who? And I told him. That poor family. That nameless household from the neighborhood she'd never stepped foot in. I wanted them to inherit my empire. My properties. My wealth. My future. Every document was rewritten. Every signature redone. Her name disappeared like smoke, and theirs took its place. Line after line. Asset after asset. When it was done, I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Not the smile of a man victorious. No. The smile of a man who had finally closed the book. Because think about it. She thought she could kill me and live as a queen. She thought she could turn my empire into her empire. Instead, I turned my empire into their salvation. Imagine the scene. Years from now, when I'm gone, when the will is read. She'll sit there, maybe still bitter, maybe still broken. Waiting. Hoping. Thinking that somehow, some way, she'll get her piece of me. And then, the words will cut through the silence. Everything goes, to them. Not her. Not ever her. That, my friends, is real revenge. Because revenge isn't about ending someone. It's about rewriting the story so they're erased from it. So they're forced to watch someone else live the life they thought was theirs. That poor family will rise. Their children will never have to beg, never have to share, never have to fear the hunger I once knew. They'll have opportunities she never deserved. And she'll live with the knowledge that she lost it all. That I gave it all away, not to her, not to anyone like her, but to the very people she would have ignored. And that sting lasts longer than any fire. I lean closer to the camera, my voice dropping low, almost a whisper. Betrayal tried to kill me. But I turned betrayal into a legacy. Not for her. Never for her. But for those who deserved it. That is how you end a story. The camera lingers. My face is calm, almost peaceful. Then the screen fades to black. White text appears. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about redirection. If this story gripped you, if it made you question trust, betrayal, and revenge, then don't let it end here. Hit that like button to keep this story alive. Subscribe so you don't miss the next dark tale I bring to light. Share this with someone who needs to hear how betrayal always comes with a price. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Your thoughts, your voice, they keep this channel breathing. Until the next story, stay sharp, stay watching, and remember, sometimes, the greatest revenge is silence.